You're listening to Fathers Handling Business, where fatherhood meets real talk and real solutions. Here are your hosts, Donté Witherspoon and Dwyan Marsh, ready to dive deep into the art and science of parenting. Let's get started and empower the dad in you.
What's going up? Welcome to another episode of Fathers Handling Business. I'm Dwyan, not Dwayne.
Donté Witherspoon.
And we are your hosts here. Thanks for tuning in with us. So today, Donté, we are going to talk about corporal punishment.
Yes. Discipline or abuse? Is it discipline?
Is it discipline or abuse? Now, let's be very specific when we're talking about corporal punishment. We're talking about putting belt to butt. We're not talking about beating the child up with a closed fist, giving them bloody eyes or bloody lips or black eyes and nothing like that. We're
no
talking
marks.
About no marks. Well, maybe belt marks. I remember getting the belt marks. So we're talking about putting belt to butt. That's what we're talking about today. Is that okay in modern parenting? So first of all, let's take it back. Let's take it back. You know, we're going to go to the Bible first.
Yep.
Okay. And we're going to see what the Bible said. Now, there is a bunch of different versions, right, of this verse. This is a very famous verse, right? So we're going to go to the King James Version first, okay? Proverbs 23, 13 and 14. It says, withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod and shalt deliver his soul from hell. Okay. Now let's go to the NLT version. Now, to be fair, this is the version that I normally read on my daily. And so this is what it says. Don't fail to discipline your children. The rod of punishment won't kill them. Physical discipline may well save them from death. So, question, did you ever get whooped as a child?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did I ever get whooped as a child? 100%. Are you alive? You good?
I'm alive. I'm good.
I think I'm good too. It didn't kill me. So what's your thoughts on this?
All right. So here's my thoughts. I got whooped and I got beat.
Okay. Now there is a difference.
There is a difference.
Let's be 100% clear.
There's
a difference between getting beat up.
Yes.
And then there's a difference between getting whooping.
I got both. Okay. I got both.
Okay.
I'm still okay.
Okay.
I do remember, so I got the switch, I got the belt, I got the hands, I got the choke. I got it all.
Okay.
And no, I wasn't a bad kid.
You weren't a bad kid?
I wasn't a bad kid.
We were all bad kids.
Man.
I'm sorry to break it to you.
No, we were kids.
But all kids are bad.
Are all kids bad?
100%. You know why? Have you ever had to tell a kid that he's being too good? Have you ever had to teach him how to be bad? Have you ever had to say to a kid, hey, you just did something fantastic? No, you have to tell a kid not to be bad. You have to teach a kid not to be bad, not to be.
No, so I'm gonna disagree.
Okay.
I'm gonna disagree because I believe that kids are good.
No.
Kids are good. They do things that are not always the right thing.
Don't you have to teach children how to share?
You got to teach them all these things. That doesn't make.
But you don't have to teach them how to be bad, though. You don't have to teach them how to be bad.
Yes, but that doesn't make.
You never taught your kid how to be bad. You never taught your kid how to be bad. So they're inherently bad. More
is caught than taught. So they do things based on what they see. So if a kid sees, and it doesn't have to be from a parent, it could be from another kid. It could
be from anywhere.
Yeah,
correct.
So more is caught than taught. So you're right. No, you don't have to teach them how to do things that are not right, but that doesn't make them bad. It makes their behavior. So that's a difference.
Okay.
Their behavior needs to change.
Okay. Right.
Just like us. We don't always do the right thing. That don't make us bad people, but sometimes we need to change our behavior.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I'll change my statement. Kids' inherent behavior is bad. They don't call it the wonderful twos, bro. They call it the terrible twos.
Yes, they do. I have a terrible two story too, man.
Okay. All right. So,
All right. So yes, I did. I got beat. I got whoopings. I got discipline. And I'll say this. So my mother did all the beating and the whoopings, right? Mm-hmm. My stepdad, he would sit you down and open up his Bible and have like an hour to 2 hour long conversation with you.
Them lectures.
Sometimes that was worse than the whoopings.
100%.
And then my dad, same thing. Like he would talk to me, not too long. He wouldn't open up the Bible or anything.
Right.
But he would talk to me. But it was mostly my mom.
Your mom was laying down the law, huh?
She
was the disciplinarian
there
in
were
the house.
some horrific incidences. And that's not what we're asking here. So like,
right.
What we're asking here is,
and to be clear, I know you. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but to be clear, what decade did you grow up in?
So I'm an '80s baby. I was born in '82.
Okay. And so you grew up in the '90s.
I grew up in the '90s.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm as well. I was born in '81.
Okay.
So I grew up right along with you.
Yes.
Late '80s, early '90s. That's when I got the bulk of my whoopings.
Okay. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Same. And so I'm going to fast forward as a dad. If you don't learn anything different than how you were raised,
mm-hmm.
then naturally, not all the time, because some people are like, I don't ever want to feel like that ever again in life. And there were things that I said, when I become a dad, I'm never going to do this, right?
Correct.
And whooping on the butt with your hand and even belt, like, I was okay with as a kid. I mean, not as a kid, as an adult looking back, being a kid.
Okay. I was about to say, as a kid, I don't think any kid was like, oh, I can't wait for this belt.
I remember when I was 25, calling my mom. I was at work and I was scrolling through, I think it was Facebook at the time, and I was seeing like some of my friends and what they were doing and how some of their lives just didn't pan out because they were allowed to do things that I wasn't allowed to do.
allowed to do, yep.
Like, I grew up in a very strict home, no parties, it was like the no fun house. And I didn't get it at that age, right?
Right.
But then fast forward, I'm 25, and I called my mom on my lunch break and I'm like, thank you. And she was like, taken aback. She was like, thank you for what? And I literally said, for whooping me. I literally said, thank you for whooping me. And she felt terrible. She felt terrible.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, she felt terrible when I said that because she was like, I was a young mom. I didn't know what I was doing. I know so much more now. I shouldn't have done those things. And I know what she was talking about.
Right.
Because there was the whoopings and then there was the beatings. Right.
Okay. So did you get bloody from any of these beatings?
No, but I had like switch marks and belt marks and but like no like real blood or anything like that.
Okay.
But my brother, who was 11 years younger, he got disciplined completely different.
Now, how did his life turn out?
I mean, he's a great. I don't want to call him a kid because he's a grown man. He's
right.
He's cool. You know what I mean?
Okay.
He's cool. It took him a little bit longer to grow into his adulthood life, but he's still good.
He's still good. All right. Cool.
And so I had that moment, but then fast forward now having like my own kids. It was a conversation that both my wife at the time and I had about how will we discipline our kids, because we both got beat.
Interesting.
And
now I just want to hold up for a second and just commend you first of all for having that conversation with your wife at the time, right? Because a lot of people in our community and just in general don't have that conversation before they have kids or before they get pregnant or before they even look at this person and commit to them for lifelong. It's like, oh, I love you. You so bad. You cute. You this, you that. And I just love how you make me feel.
Right.
But they don't ask the real hard hitting questions like, What is your opinion on how we raising these kids?
Yeah,
how are we gonna discipline these kids? Are we gonna be the same religion? Are we gonna be a different religion? What's the difference? So I just want to commend you on being mature enough to ask that, where most people didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's a big conversation, big topic conversation to have, because you're entering into a relationship with someone that you will potentially have a kid with, right?
Correct.
And if you don't have those same views, or you're not on the same page, there's going to be conflict within, the parenting part of that relationship.
So how did that conversation go?
So we both agreed that we will not spare the rod.
Okay.
So, but we would not. Our rules were, we're not going to whoop or spank out of anger, and whoever does the correcting will also do the consoling. So
interesting.
If one parent whoops, the other parent can go and console. It's the same person that, and there was always a conversation that would be had with that child that was going to be disciplined. So first it was a conversation, then it was the disciplining, then it was the consoling.
Okay.
Yeah. So CDC. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's how we rolled, right? Okay. I think the biggest default in disciplining that we had was, and we didn't think it through, and it was always reactionary, was yelling. And yelling is out. People don't see it as a form of discipline, but it is.
But it is. It's emotional.
It's not corporal, but it's emotional. It's mental.
Yeah.
Right.
It's. I mean, we know a lot more about mental health now than we did, in the 80s and 90s. But it's yelling is a form of abuse. Is a form of emotional abuse.
Yes.
And it can be a form of emotional abuse, especially if you're yelling at a child, and a lot of times they don't even understand what you're yelling about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They just know that it's yelling. I grew up in a household. So my mother was a single mother, but she foresaw that I was going to need some extra help. So I lived half of the time with my godparents. And so my godparents were mother and father, and there were 6 of us, right? I was the youngest, and then there were 6 other siblings. So it was a big house. It was lots going on, lots of yelling. My godmother she was a yeller. My mother was not a yeller, but my godmother, she was a yeller, and it definitely affected how we interacted with her, you know what I'm saying? Because we just didn't want the yelling, you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously you don't want whoopings either, right. You know what I'm saying? But you also, do things so that you can avoid the yelling. And sometimes you're not even doing things that you want to do, or doing things learning any type of lessons. You just want it to stop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and so I wanted to bring it back to the verse for a second, and kind of bring it to, nowadays how we have to, at least in this country, in America, how we have to not spare the rod, right? Because it's different. Like, we just can't get the switch out. We just can't, take the belt out. But the verse does say, don't fail to discipline your children, because the rod of punishment won't kill them, right? So, not necessarily saying that it has to be a rod that you punish them with, right? So what are some other ways that we can discipline our children without yelling and without beating them, or using the rod, the proverbial rod?
Right. So there are a lot of different ways. A lot of people would like to sit down and have conversations with their kids because they want to get, whatever the behavior was, they want to correct that. And, some people's perspective in correcting the behavior is talking it through. That was my stepdad's perspective. Like, he wanted to talk things through, and he was just a very spiritual, man, and he wanted to use the Bible, and that's what he did.
Okay.
It wasn't out of anger. It was more so out of making these things a teachable moment, which I really appreciate.
Right.
And so
but do you appreciate it now, or did you appreciate it then?
I definitely appreciate it way more now than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I just wanted him to shut up.
Right.
He would not stop talking.
And I think that goes to another verse that says, train a child up in the way they should go, so that when they get old, they will not depart.
Right.
So it's like imparting that wisdom upon them because, like I said, my mom was a single mother, but when I wasn't with my godparents, my grandfather would fly out from Chicago when we were in LA, and he was that guy. He was the lecturer.
Okay.
Like I remember getting out the shower and he just busted in. I'm butt naked, drying, you know what I'm saying, wet, everything. He just was talking, wouldn't let me get a towel. Like I'm like, bro, like but I remember that in my mind, like I won't forget that. Right. And I remember the conversation even. You know what I'm saying? What he was talking about and, just about being intelligent and, this and that. I don't remember the whole conversation, but I do remember bits and pieces of it. I remember being in the bathroom just dripping wet while this man busted in on me after a shower and all you care about is them little curls on your head. I had this since I was in high school. You know what I'm saying? All you care about, you need to do this and what. And it's like, man, but as I'm older now, I remember those conversations. You know what I'm saying? And I even find myself giving my kids those conversations.
Ain't that crazy?
It's crazy. But I will say I had one of my kids call me and say, Dad, I remembered what you said. Right. I remembered what you said. One of my big things with my kids was, there's consequences for every action, whether good or bad. Right. So just know that whatever you're about to do or whatever you're doing, there's going to be a consequence for it, whether it's good or bad. And you make that decision on how it's going to turn out based on on what you're doing. And so one of my middle son called me and was like, Dad, you were right. You know what I'm saying? I almost teared up for a second, like, okay. So they actually were listening. Right. They were listening, even though they were rolling their eyes or, acting like they weren't. But, to me, those two verses go hand in hand because you can't just discipline without training.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And so there is the teachable moment form of discipline. I think, our country is steering away from the corporal punishment because they believe it doesn't teach them anything rather than when you're upset or, you hit somebody.
Right.
And so, and to a certain extent, like, I kind of agree with that.
Now, like I said, there's a big difference between abuse and just flying off the handle, right? When you're upset and disciplining. So, for me personally, I never got, nobody flew off the handle on me. You know what I'm saying? Like none of my mother never did it. My godparents never did it except the yelling, like I said, and my grandfather never did it. Whenever I got whoopings, I knew they were coming. And to me, that was worse. Just the anticipation, right? Like my mom would be real calm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She'd be like, go in there and get the belt.
Yeah.
And go in there and take off your pants and wait for me. So I'm sitting there, I'm pacing in the room in my underwears and my tighty whities.
Oh, you get to have your underwear on?
Yeah, I had to have my underwear on. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I had my underwear on. I don't remember. Yeah, I had my tidy whities on. I remember that for sure. But my legs was wide open, brother. My legs was wide open. Yeah, then you try to be slick and be like, yo, I'm about to go take a bath. And then you get in the water and then it just stings. Like, bruh, like to me, that was worse. Like the one time that my mom did go off on me, she was really mad. I was already older. I was bigger than her. I was maybe 16 or something. And she was just like this. And I was like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like, what are you doing, Mom? Like, calm down. Like that didn't, you know what I'm saying? That didn't faze me. That didn't do anything. And she just kind of went off the cuff because she was upset about something I did. But, you know, that, I would have rather that anytime, any day over like a planned whooping. And then for them to say the classic words is that this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you.
Yes.
Like.
How many of y'all heard that?
Everybody heard that.
This is going to hurt me.
This is going to hurt me
you.
more, but I get it. I do get it as a parent. But as a child, you know, I just thought she was lying straight to my face. I thought she was lying straight to my face. What you mean to tell me that you swinging this belt is hurting you more than it's hurting me? Right. I don't think so. You see these welts on my legs?
Yeah.
Come on.
So, in today's society, right? Mm-hmm. Like, do you agree that using a belt is okay?
So, me and you talked about this a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. Like, we both have instances where what we believe doesn't even matter. Right? So, what I believe, what you believe, it really doesn't matter because the way that we are today, the way that the laws are, especially in California, you know, I had a run-in with the CPS, with the Child Protective Services, because, you know, I used to flick, like a little flick on the ear, like, hey, chill out, stop that, bow. You know what I'm saying? Hit him with a little bow, bow. You know what I'm saying? And so my youngest son, I don't know how he said this, but he said this to his teacher when he was maybe 5th grade, maybe, right? Okay. And so it turned out to be this whole big thing. I had to go to CPI. I had to go to all these interviews. Am I abusing my kids? Do you need to go to counseling? Wow. I'm like, I'm just flicking on him. There's no blood. He's just like, okay, I'm gonna stop. You see what I'm saying? These are just like, but I couldn't see my kids for 3 months based off of that. Right? So who knows if it would have got reported that I actually, you know, hit him with a belt or hit him with the switch. Like, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about a little ear flick. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing even crazy. And I have to go through all these things. So what I believe in today's society does not matter because of how the rules are where we are. So, you know, you gotta, you know, give Caesar his. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta live by the rules in which you live, and where you live and the time you live. So to answer your question, no, because not based off of what I believe, but just based off of the laws and how it's set up now. Right. You know, so
let me ask you this. Do you think now, you know, based off the laws, based off, you know, your experience of what happened, if you could do things over, so your kids are older now, but if you could have a redo, would you change anything in how you discipline your kid from the get-go?
Not from the get-go, but what I did do is I switched it up to, okay, y'all don't want me to touch them? Okay, so I'm going to make them do physical labor, basically, you know? I know Will Smith talks about in his book how his dad used to make them like move bricks from here to there. You know what I'm saying? Like build a wall brick by brick, that kind of stuff. You know, that kind of stuff builds character. I didn't make them do that, but I did make them do wall sits. Okay. You know, like where they're sitting at the wall 90 degree, and then I would put something in their hands as well.
Can they play good defense when they play basketball?
Yeah, I mean, to me, you know, my son, my middle son, man, he used to go crazy when that happened. He hated that. He'd be in the bathroom crying for hours afterwards. He'd be like, my legs, you know. But, you know, I had to do that less and less because they understood. You know what I'm saying? That was my form of punishment. Like, okay, once they got older, I made them hold like water jugs up while they was doing it. You know, like the degree of difficulty got harder, you know, especially based on, you know, what kind of infraction you did. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe that you should spare the rod, but you just have to be more creative You know what I'm saying? In this day and age, because, the way the laws are set up, and I get it. I know there's a lot of people that are abusing children. I know there's a lot of people that are beating children up and stuff like that. That was never the case. That was never the case in my situation. You know what I'm saying? It was more of, I'm trying to discipline you and trying to get you from point A to point B. You know what I'm saying? And if I can't, use physical, okay, then we're going to do something else. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I know I've heard of, other parents doing like push-ups, and I think you were talking about burpees. And
yes. I incorporated burpees because, like you, I had a very similar situation. CPS was not involved, but I actually took my belt off at the school because my son was disrespecting one of the teachers. And I wanted him to not feel physical pain, but embarrassment. And so I took my belt off. No other kids were there, just his teacher. And I smacked his butt a couple times. And he had all his clothes on. It didn't hurt him at all. But he it hurt his feelings that I would do that. And that was the point. Like, that's what I wanted to do because he hurt his teacher's feelings. And I'm huge on respect.
Correct.
Like, you need to show respect to your teachers. And it's mutual, right? I'm always going to show somebody respect. I expect respect in return.
Correct.
And so I don't remember what book it was.
Do you remember the name of the book that they made you read?
I do not remember the book.
Okay, exactly.
I don't remember the book. And but it was just this whole thing. And so I said, okay. And so from that point on, I did not spank my kids. Okay. Didn't touch them. Okay. Instead, I incorporated burpees. Okay. And my kids are athletic kids. They're in sports. And I'm like, and like you said, you have to be creative, right?
Correct.
So I said, okay, what's the most creative thing I can think of that they will hate to do, but it will also help them in the long run? And so I'm like, burpees. Like, if you think about burpees, it hits your whole body.
It does. It's
and
tough.
So, and it wasn't like, oh, you have to do 2 burpees. No, it was like, they would ask me, how many burpees do I have to do? And I'm like, until I say stop.
Ooh.
And so I wanted them to, just like kids get spankings or whoopings because the behavior needs to be corrected, I needed them to feel something that they never wanted to feel ever again. So whatever behavior they did needed to be corrected so they wouldn't have to do, this amount of burpees, right? And so, and I was a stickler on it. There were times where I'd pull the car over, like we'll be driving and I pull into a parking lot or the side of the road. I'll be like, get out, hit them burpees, get them burpees.
You raw for that one. You a raw brother for that one.
Hey.
But you gotta do it.
You gotta do it. Like you said, you have to be creative. And so, and I wanted them to know that it wasn't a game. I'm not playing. This is your discipline. Like,
correct.
This is, your behavior needs to change. And this is how we're going to change it through this form of discipline.
Correct.
So, like I don't, do they consider that corporal punishment?
I don't know. I think, it's a non-physical form of discipline. But in my eyes and in my purview, like it's discipline. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not like I'm definitely not a proponent of beating kids up, to their bloody blue, but they have to feel you in some type of way. Right. So if you're not gonna be able to feel me with a belt or a rod or whatever, then you're gonna feel me with these push-ups, these burpees, these wall sits. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna feel me and you're gonna understand. And on top of that, it goes with the talking as well, right? Like as they got older, it was more talking. It was more, you need like understand what you're doing and why you're doing, or why what you're doing is unacceptable.
Right. And why you're being disciplined.
Right, why you're being disciplined. Like, you have to understand why you're being disciplined. And I think that's something that gets lost a lot of times is like people are just being like, well, don't do that because I said don't do it, right? Right? And that's just, as a kid, that just doesn't fly. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, I'm just not doing this just because you don't want me to do it? Like, no. So, I always gave a reason why this is, and that goes back to what I said, like, you're doing this and you keep doing that, the consequences of this are not going to be good. Right. So I want you to understand that all of your actions have a consequence, whether negative or positive. And so you need to be doing things that have a positive consequence. Right. Reaping you sow. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that was just the thing that I tried to incorporate more and more as they got older. Like I said, I'm sure, you know, it was lectures, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, you know, sometimes the lectures hurt worse than the whooping or the punishment. But, you know, as a parent, as a father of, you know, minority kids, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You have to be strict on them and stricter on them, because they need to understand that it's not a game out here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a game. And because everything is so accessible and they have so much knowledge, but no wisdom and not a lot of wisdom, we have to impart that wisdom, especially because, you know, we've been through it. And even though they think that, you know, oh, dad doesn't know what he's talking about, you know, just like we thought that at 18, 19 and, you know, younger
we thought
years.
We knew everything.
We thought we knew everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how, you know, once they start going through things, they start seeing it from a different angle. You know, I call my kids toddlers again, right? Because like my youngest is 18, right? So I have an 18-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 22-year-old.
Right.
And so when my 22-year-old turned 18, graduated high school, he thought he was the bee's knees. Yeah. He thought it was this. But then he started living the adult life, and he was like, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? What?
It's not as easy as you.
It's not as easy, right? Like a lot of parents think that as soon as their kid turns 18, oh, bye-bye, you know, you kick them out. But, you know, I tell a lot of my friends who have kids that are younger and they're starting to see like, man, like it just starts all over again. Like now you have to teach them like adult stuff, like stuff that you told them about, but now they're experiencing and they're like for themselves and they're like, oh snap, like this is adulting is way different. Like I can't just start adulting and then stop. Like I can't like have a credit card, start paying it and then just stop paying it. You know?
Right.
Like it just doesn't work like that. Once you got these bills, they're there.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
So it's definitely a different form of parenting and a different form of discipline. But as far as corporal punishment in America today, it's almost non-existent.
I do have to touch on one thing that you said, you know, and it's almost it's giving them a voice by you explaining the why. Mm-hmm. So, and that's something that my kids actually taught me. Because they would always ask why. I was always told because I said so. Right. And naturally, you know, in my head, I'm like, why are you even asking me? Like, because I said so. Like, you do this because I said so.
Right.
But that, like you said, it wasn't good enough.
It's not good enough.
Yeah.
Like, I never subscribed to that. That never made sense to me.
Right.
You know?
And so my kids taught me, like, they need to have there needs to be an explanation. And it's not because they're challenging you. They actually want to understand. Mm-hmm. And so it took me a little while to get that, but I finally got that. And I'm able to explain to them, you know, why they're doing certain things or why I don't want them to do certain things.
Right.
And another thing I want to touch on is, like you mentioned, raising minority kids. Like, their consequences can be far greater than those of kids who are not non-minority kids in our society.
Right.
And teaching them about that and giving them the wisdom, like you said, to understand that is extremely important, because we don't live in a fair society.
Life's not fair. Fair. First of all, I just want to address that real quick. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Fair is not in the Bible.
Right.
It's just not, there's not even a Hebrew word, which is God's language, is Hebrew. There's not even a Hebrew word for fair. So that's just something that we came up with.
Right.
But it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, we don't live in a society that, you know, treats all people fair.
Right.
Right.
Even all people of the same race.
Yeah.
You know?
So Yeah, like it's a necessity for us to teach our kids these type of things, especially how to move as a minority kid and things to look out for, and have that be a part of the topic of conversation when we are disciplining them, so they'll know, like, and like you said, like there's a consequence for every action that you guys make. They need to understand, like, there are different levels of consequences.
Correct.
Right? For the things that we do.
Correct.
I know that a lot of people will probably be flooding the comments with their perspective on corporal punishment.
Right.
And what it was like for them growing up.
Right.
And how it's viewed today in today's society. And we want to hear. We want to know what you think. Let us know about your life experience, what worked for you, what didn't work for you. I know that there are a lot of different forms of discipline and how people were raised. And so we want to know what your take is on all those.
Yeah, what kind of whoopings did you get? I mean, I know I got the ones where, I had the little welts from the belt. I did pull the switch on my son one time. I did the switch thing on my son one time just because I wanted him to have that experience. Let me know if I'm tripping. Let me know if obviously I only did it once. And he turned out fine. I mean, he's still here with us.
They're gonna crucify us in these comments.
But I mean, these are, we can only go off of what we were taught, right? So every generation, we get better, we get smarter, we stand on the shoulders of, the generation before us, our ancestors. And so, our parents, to go off of something you said earlier, we were always told, like, hey, do it because I said do it.
Right.
Right? Be seen and not heard.
Yes.
But those are all things that came from their parents, right? Which came from their parents, which really ultimately came from slavery.
Yeah.
If you really want to break it all the way down. And so that's just kind of just passed down. And obviously we're way past that now.
Yes.
And so we're not thinking the same way that, even our grandparents thought, like our grandparents, they couldn't talk back to their moms, and not that I condone talking back in any way, but, having respectful conversations, I had conversations with my kids, and I'm sure you're having conversations with your kids that I never had with my mom or with any of my parents, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm grateful that I was able to have these conversations and kind of explain to them because, even just the mistakes that I made, I was able to tell my kids, like, hey, this is what I did, and I don't want you to do the same thing. Like, you're going to make your own mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, make your own mistakes, but don't make the same mistakes that I did.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And this is what I did. This is why I did it. And, this was my thought process at the time, because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the wisdom. I may have had the knowledge, but I didn't have the wisdom. And so, just being able to have these conversations with your kids is crucial to their development. Like I said, when we were growing up, we were just told to shut up.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, I guess I'm going back outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, we appreciate you taking the time to listen in to this conversation. Like Donté said, let us know in the comments what kind of punishments you had. Let us know what works. What can fathers do today to not spare the rod, but discipline their kids, but, not get in trouble with CPS to where they're getting their kids taken away.
Yeah.
We definitely want to, discipline our kids, but we don't want to beat our kids up. We don't want to emotionally destroy our kids. So let us know what you think is something good that people can do. Because I know there's different levels of dads. There's people who are brand new dads. There's people who are dads with 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds. You got 11-year-old,
11-year-old, 8-year-old.
Got 11-year-old. There's dads who have grandchildren now. like I said, I'm in the stage where I have young adults and they're learning how to adult. So, I have to talk to them and discipline them differently. I guess I don't really discipline them anymore. Like, I'm more of like an advisor now. I'm like their coach. I'm like their, they're just their RA, their advisor, their resident advisor,
And we're not talking about, I also want to clarify it because I know there's going to be people in the comments that would say like, well, what about, infants and toddlers? And we're not really talking about them. That's more of a come alongside, show them like what we want them to do.
Right.
So
that brings up a whole nother question.
It does.
What's the right age to, kind of give a little smack to a toddler or to a kid?
Right.
Right.
That does
what's the
because
what's
a baby doesn't know.
A baby doesn't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I whooped my kids until they were old enough. They were at least like 7, 8, something like that before they got their first like real like belt to butt whooping.
Yeah,
they were older.
It's definitely that does bring up a whole nother question.
That brings up a whole nother question. Yeah. What is the proper age to really start disciplining your kids? And obviously corporal punishment is not good for babies, in my opinion anyway. But, you still have to teach them and you still have to discipline your kid because they got to know.
At that young age, it's more about modeling. So we want to model the behavior that we want to see in them and we show them. A lot of times when we say no or don't do this, like whatever it is we're saying no to or don't to, the last thing they hear is the exact thing that we don't want them to do. So like, don't run, they hear run.
They hear run.
Stop running, they hear running. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But if we say walk and we show them how to walk, or if we say sit here, like instead of,
So that's an interesting psychological thing that you just brought up is repurposing the language.
Yes,
because
it's huge.
Because as humans, our subconscious brain does not, and back me up on this if I'm wrong or if I'm right, our subconscious brain doesn't understand the word don't or no, right? Followed by a phrase.
Right. So,
right? So
it does and it doesn't. It depends on your age, but like when we're modeling for 0 to, I don't know, let's say kindergarten, right? We want to model and we want to speak exactly what we want from them.
Not what we don't want. So like you said, don't run is different from walk.
Right.
That's a huge.
If you got a kid,
right
you got a kid at the table playing with their food. You don't want to say stop playing with your food or don't play with your food. You want to say, hey, Craig, eat your chicken or eat your pasta, whatever.
So the words are very important here. So that's a good little tidbit there, young man, that you brought up there.
I didn't always have it. I learned that. I learned that, y'all. I learned that for real.
That's a good tidbit. So instead of saying don't do this, just say what you want them to do.
Right.
Got it. So would you call that modeling? Modeling?
Yeah. You would say that would be modeling behavior or showing like physically showing them exactly what you want them to do. Because like for babies, like infants, or I would say like, let's say like a 1-year-old that's not really talking, but they can like move around and like they're doing something like, playing with the socket or whatever, or trying to play with the socket. You can like gently like, move their hands away and like say like, hey, let's come over here and play with this. Instead of saying, don't touch that or no, they're going to laugh at you. That just sounds funny to them. They're going to laugh at you and they're going to keep doing it because they think it's funny. But if you redirect their attention to something else that you would want them to do rather than, that, then they're going to do that.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Like I said, that was a nice little tidbit. That's a little tidbit right there. Donté's tips. We like it. We appreciate you checking this out. This is Fathers Handling Business. Like I said, I'm Dwyan, not Dwayne. It's Donté Witherspoon, and we'll check you next time. Peace.